Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. And actually, that's the first thing that you could all do before we get into proper introductions and everything. I would just love at least one person to write in the chat, yes, we hear you. Yes, we see you. Do you see two people? Those are really the key things. Okay, all is good. Yes, 10 out of 10. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And you hear Rachel as well. Just want to make sure of that.
Hi, everyone.
Sorry, Rachel, didn't mean to cut you off. And I'm going to do proper introduction, both for myself, but also Rachel in a second. But before we do that, we just always like to take 2 or 3 minutes while people are, joining. Some people are a little late to get to know you a bit better. The chat's working wonderfully, which is fantastic. If you could let us know maybe where you are in the world and what kind of business you work for, and the shortest possible way you can write that. So it could be a SaaS company, it could be a bookstore, anything in between. And we're going to say hi to a few people, like Julio from DNA Digital Marketing, Rochester, New York. Hi. Katina in Paris, who's in EdTech. Very exciting. Oh my, they're coming in quickly. We have Valon, who's in Paris, and SaaS as well. Hi. Owen in Canada, bookkeeping. Lovely. I hope I said Owen right. I'm pretty sure that's right. Andrew, Jacksonville, all the way down in Florida. Welcome. Truck driving school. Cool. So we have a really nice mix. Antonio's in a food delivery business in Ireland. That's also really interesting and lovely. It's nice not to always, I'm as we'll introduce, I'm from Spindesk. We're a SaaS company, and a lot of the time we spend a lot of time talking to other SaaS or B2B companies. So it's really nice to have a great mix. We have Christine, who's in business coaching for entrepreneurs. We have Herman, who's in a consulting business as well. Eva, I think I've said that right, who's in Cologne and a digital platform. Welcome. Couple more. Bernard, who's Piston Power, an engineering company near Munich. Well, also, we've got quite a few German visitors or attendees today. Same for Oliver, who's also in Munich. Really interesting, Rachel. And what's great, as I said, is that we have a really nice mix of companies, which I think fits nicely the mix of case studies that we're going to look at a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really great not to be talking to tech companies as much as I love tech companies. Justin, who is the finance director of a tech company, good timing. It's really nice to have a mix. And so we'll hopefully be able to, give examples and advice and ideas that should be relevant to everybody. But obviously, please let us know as we go. So I'm going to now share my screen, share the slides, and we're going to kind of get into it. Thank you all very much for doing that exercise with us. It's kind of always my favorite part of webinars.
Oh, same. I love this. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. It's really great to be here with everyone.
If only that was the web, that could just be the webinar. We would just say hi to everybody for a full hour. As hopefully everybody is aware, we're talking today about finance automation and specifically automating specific finance processes, which we're going to look at shortly in quite a lot of detail. Some pretty obvious and basic housekeeping. The first question everybody always asks is this recorded? Yes, it is recorded. We are going to send out the recording pretty much straight after, hopefully, within half an hour or so after, but certainly within 24 hours. Please use the chat tab for chatting, which you've all done wonderfully. We will have questions at the end specifically. And so for that, we ask that you use the questions tab, just because it can be hard to keep track of the questions when they're mixed in with other chat. So, please do that. And lastly, don't be shy, which clearly not too many people are because we had such wonderful interaction just then. But please do interact as we go, because we are watching the chat, and so we'd love to be able to sort of interact in real time as we go.
Yeah, if you hear anything that you can identify with or have a thought about anything that we've said, just drop us a note in the chat. We'd love for this to be an interactive conversation.
Absolutely. And even though we will have the Q&A at the end, as you see there on the agenda, if we can respond to questions in real time, we will do our best to do that. Obviously, if we're in a flow, we won't, but we should be able to. So very quickly, the agenda, we're each going to introduce ourselves and a little bit about the companies we work for and why we're here today. Then we're going to have a pretty brief kind of high-level introduction to the concept of finance automation and just why we think it's so important. I think a lot of that will be pretty clear and obvious to people, but it's worth us just sort of spelling it out at the beginning. For that reason, we won't take too long, and instead we're going to get into quite a lot of detail on 6 examples of automation in action, from real companies doing it.
Real life people.
Real life people with real stories. So first of all, I'm Patrick. I'm the content lead at Spindesk. To answer my own question from earlier, I'm in Paris, and Spindesk is a B2B SaaS financial services company, as I mentioned earlier. Very, very quickly, if you don't know us, we are a spend management platform, which basically means we combine company cards or, a smarter version of company cards, so better than your company credit card, in our opinion. Employee expenses and reimbursements, reporting, and then we make automated accounting really simple because all of that data then just flows directly into your accounting platform. That's it. No more on that. The other thing that will be really interesting, particularly to our finance team members here, which I think is probably going to be quite a lot of you, is our community, CFO Connect. It's a finance community built for finance leaders. Everybody, as long as you're an experienced finance leader, you are more than welcome to join. It's at cfoconnect.eu. Please join us. I'm now going to hand over to Rachel.
Thanks, Patrick. So hi, everyone. It's lovely to meet you. I'm Rachel from Visita. I used to have my own business many years ago, and I know you did too, Patrick. So it's cool. I think we've discussed, how 2 ex-business owners now coming from the tech provider side. It's been almost 10 years since I had my own business. I've pivoted into tech, and I'm absolutely loving every single day at Visita, especially because Visita caters to basically me in my old professional life. Visita, we're pretty much just passionate about, making finance management simpler for business owners. So helping business owners focus on what they do best, what they love doing, what makes them proud, and kind of streamlining all that financial work in the background, automating whatever we can. Visita helps business owners. Visita has been helping business owners for over a decade. We just celebrated about a year ago. We had our big 10-year anniversary party. You can see on the next slide, there's a bit of an illustration of what we do, what our platform looks like. We help business owners kind of become more organized. We support them throughout their day-to-day activities with managing their finance with confidence, kind of managing their time, their clients, everything that all the day-to-day administration work that isn't involved with running a small business. So you're basically becoming more organized, more efficient. You're able to better serve your clients. Here we're here to talk about payments today, and I'm going to be telling some stories about businesses that use Visita to kind of streamline their whole payment management collection. So more of that to come soon.
Wonderful, thanks. Well, we should get right into it then, because why not? So, as I said, I think this is going to be a question. The answer to this question is going to be fairly obvious or seem fairly obvious to lots of people, but we do need to start by just spelling out why finance automation is and can be so valuable to businesses. For us, there's just really 4 key reasons. Of course, I think you could probably come up with dozens. But as you can see, we're really interested in trying to save time. It's such a huge one. One that we don't talk about necessarily enough with automation is the ability to reduce errors that come through just human error. People just making mistakes by doing the same processes over and over again. Naturally, errors and mistakes creep in, and they just are reduced with automation because machines tend to make fewer mistakes. It also helps to free up team members to do better or more important work. I would never want to say that a certain kind of work is better than another, of course, but in a lot of the examples that we're going to show, we're really talking about things here that are not particularly value adding. They're more the things that have to get done, and as soon as you get them out of the way, you're free to do what you really came to work to do today. And unfortunately, in some cases, those processes take up so much time you really don't have much time to do that real value adding work. And that's what we're all about here. And then the last thing is just adding peace of mind. And I know that was something that you wanted to talk about, Rachel. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I do have to talk about saving time. To me, that's really one of the core elements of automation. If whether you're on a finance team or if you're a business owner or even just work for a business and sometimes do a finance person's work, you can probably relate to this, that there's, the famous saying with time is money, but actually you can reverse that too and say that money is time, because it takes a whole lot of time to deal with money, to collect it from the clients, pay it to your vendors, kind of wrap your head around all the numbers just to understand where you're currently standing financially. So your servancy, when you serve clients, every hour you're spending in front of their computer or in front of a spreadsheet is an hour you're not with clients. It's an hour you're likely not collecting payment for. So that adds up to a lot of hours, which could add up to a lot of money that isn't being made because you're busy spending time managing your money. So it's a bit of a catch-22 here. So that's why, when applying automation, you can take care of all these time-consuming tasks. Just like putting a lot of these things on autopilot, pretty much like you said, Patrick, and just clearing time to do things that are more valuable, do things that you love doing that bring value to your business, do things that make money, or at least just, focus on the strategic work that can't be automated. And that brings me to peace of mind, which I think is also a big, part of automation. The value of automation is peace of mind. When you run a business, and I remember this, it's been almost 10 years now, and I can still remember the stress and the responsibility and the sleepless nights. You just have so much to worry about as a business owner. And with that pride and with, the joy of running your own business or being bringing contribution to a business owned by someone else, there's just this burden of being responsible for your own financial well-being or the well-being of the people you employ, or the people that employ you. It's just kind of a lot. So watching these due dates come and go, and you're not sure, if the clients are going to pay up on time, making commitments to vendors or to your employees and being kind of nervous about, is it all going to be really covered? This is really stress at its best. So automating the collection and kind of putting everything in autopilot in the background can really eliminate some of these stress. So when I talk about automation, to me, it's always very much about just kind of clearing your both your table and your mind from everything that can be done by a machine, so you can focus on the things that can't be done by a machine.
Well, let's have what are some of those things? Particularly the ones that we want to be talking about today. Of course, there are others.
Yeah.
Are you happy to run us through these?
Sure. So I briefly mentioned billing and accounts receivables. We're going to be, talking a lot about this in the examples to come. Employee expenses. As an employee managing expenses, I've seen how time consuming this can be, and it's quite, an easy one to automate. So we'll be hearing some examples from here too. Supplier invoices, something that definitely can be automated, and receipt collection. So let's talk automation. Let's dive into some of these examples.
Deal. Okay. Well, I think, in fact, you're up first.
Okay. So when we had to, Patrick and I, we kind of talked about choosing some stories and bringing automation to life, through stories of real business owners. We could have had slides that just say, some people do this, some people do that. But we're both fortunate enough to be working with real people that have real stories about real business processes. So, we kind of chose a couple of inspiring ones to share with you guys today. So this is Ashley. I came across Ashley's story when I was working with, we have quite a large community of tax professionals that use Visita. And I found her story just super inspiring. And that's, we'll start with this one. So Ashley comes from a family of financial whiz kids. And yet, although her family does have a business, she started her own. She started her own tax consulting and accounting business, which I must say she conducts in her very own unique signature style. And before she applied automation with Visita, when we were having a chat with her, she kind of told us about two challenges. And one of them was just using a lot of different apps and maybe some of you can relate to this. Drop me a note in the chat if this kind of sounds familiar to you. But you're using a lot of different apps that are sort of disconnected and fragmented, and you're using technology and you build up this tech stack, and it actually becomes really hard to maintain. From you're using these tools because you think they're going to save you time, but they actually create even more work, even more data entry, more cross-referencing. This is creating a lot of extra work just for the sake of having these automation tools. So that was one challenge that Ashley spoke to us about. And another issue that Ashley was facing with the tools she was using was security and user experience. So if you work in the financial sector or in the healthcare sector, storing client information can become kind of tricky. There are different rules, depends on where in the world you're from, but there's a lot of regulation around data security, what you can store in your own machine, what you can put into these applications. And some of the software solutions that are designed for these industries, for finance and for healthcare, it's kind of like the person that designed them was like, okay, you know what, this is secure, so I don't have to worry about design or usability or any kind of advanced customization. I'm just going to build something that's secure and really dreadful to work with. So that was kind of Ashley's experience. She was using she was using an app to collect payments and kind of create these intakes for her customers. And her customers were telling her, look, we're happy to do things online, but this just isn't working. It's not intuitive, it's clunky, it's slow. And when you work in a competitive market, this stuff really matters. Your ability to serve your clients online in an intuitive and kind of user-friendly environment, that really means a lot to people. So she really felt like she needed to find a way to interact with her clients, collect payments, send them invoices, send them intake forms in an environment that was friendly and intuitive. So that's how Ashley came to Visita. And when Ashley implemented Visita, the first thing she did was to enable payments during scheduling. So your client is showing up to schedule an appointment. And while they're booking that appointment, they're also paying for it. So that's, great for the client. They don't have to worry about, bringing enough cash or remembering to bring their credit card. It's kind of all taken care of. And from your end, it kind of takes away that whole messy administrative part that, the appointment is done. Now you have to start printing out the invoice and sending it or asking them for payment before they leave your office. If it's that kind of appointment and you're able to collect payment upon scheduling, that's fantastic. And for Ashley's bigger projects, the one where it's not just the appointment, right? You're billing for an ongoing project. She would create invoices and send them to clients online, and they could access them via her portal that is created with Visita. So her clients access her portal, secure portal, completely safe to use, super user-friendly and intuitive. And that's where they're able to view their invoices and with a couple of clicks, pay them as well. So instead of, printing out the invoices or, kind of creating them in some other app, uploading them onto the computer, attaching them to an email, sending them, calling your client to make sure the email came through, and then calling them again to remind them that payment is due, everything kind of happens in one seamless flow. So, with Visita, Ashley's clients are either paying while they're scheduling the appointment or after the appointment via the portal. So they're happy. Ashley gets the money in the bank. It's a win-win situation for both Ashley and her clients.
And I think that principle applies equally to finance teams within a business, where the client in this case, obviously you're talking about a kind of B2C situation where there's a business providing something directly to the customer. But if we think now about finance teams within a company, the client is kind of, in this case, the other members of the company, the other employees. We'll look, as I said, at examples of things like expense claims and invoices. But when they have to come from a member of the team who is not financially savvy necessarily, or who's just super busy and can't be bothered, which is both common and I think kind of fair enough in a way, the more user-friendly and I guess intuitive that you can make that process for those people, the more likely it is that they'll actually do it, which then kills a lot of that extra admin that comes just from having to chase people. which is something that we hear so much from finance teams about, is really, even if they have for them a process that works pretty well, the finance team understands the process. They spend so much time at the end of the month or the end of the year going around from team to team, asking about receipts, asking about invoices, or even just asking about little pieces of missing information that are preventing them from processing them kind of immediately.
Yeah.
All of that is built into the kind of win that comes with good automation, because the automation itself helps kind of hold their hand and guide them through that process so that they can't do it wrong. So then you don't have to go back and redo it.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb with any app you're using, not only for finance automation, but anything, is that if you're implementing it with the goal of saving time and creating more order, and then it actually ends up creating even just more manual work and maintenance, you should reconsider the app you've selected. And this is something that unfortunately happens all the time with tech vendors. Everything is packaged up really nicely and seems like it's going to work out really great. But if it's not a real inclusive solution that covers, a pretty wide use case, it's very likely, that you'll be finding yourself, and I find this as a consumer of tech solutions, that very often you're just working harder than ever. It's like you're enslaved by these apps that you're using.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. And I promised expenses. So this is all about expenses. And I think it's going to be a story that's familiar to everyone, although maybe not the degree to which they were kind of suffering under the rule of expenses. So the British Society of Gastroenterology, I always enjoy the opportunity to say that out loud. It's like a professional body that has a meeting every year, big annual meeting with over 250 people who travel from everywhere. And part of the deal is they travel, all over the UK, I should say. From all over the UK, they come together for the annual meeting, and obviously things like their travel expenses and meals during that time are reimbursed because it's a professional body. That's what it's all about. The trouble was for our friend Sarah, who had to deal with all of these expenses, these were all claims that were made often months later on paper, sent in by the mail. So you could just picture 250, 260 envelopes arriving, spread out over time, obviously, but they could be months later, and Sarah having to go through every single one. What complicates matters is that it's not actually Sarah would have to check them, but it's not her who validates them or approves them. It has to go to the committee chair, who doesn't even work in the same building as Sarah, not even in the same city. So they would be sent, again, they would be compiled, sent by post. The chair would then have to validate every single one of them. They come back to Sarah for them to be paid.
And I think, Patrick, I'm just imagining like this Harry Potter moment with like envelopes. Do you get that reference? Just like envelopes flying like nonstop,
coming through the chimney.
Exactly.
I think the crazy thing is that was probably just business for decades or centuries. That was the best way. But obviously there are better ways to do this now. And it's as simple as digitizing those expenses, really. As soon as those claims can be made in a digital platform, obviously in this case it's Spindesk, but there are plenty of good ones. Those claims are submitted first in a more timely manner because there's no reason for people to put it off. They can make the claim literally the moment they're sitting down to have their meal, or when they get on the train, or even in fact before that when they pay for the train. They can submit the claim right away. There are fewer mistakes, as we said, because obviously using a tool or an app or whatever it is walks you through that process. So you can't forget to add the thing like the reason for traveling or the date. You just can't forget these things. The tool won't let you. But then also they can be immediately sent on to the chair if the chair would like to validate them one by one, or they can be we can wait and then just batch send them all off at the time that suits the chair. They will then be automatically sent back to Sarah, who can then process them simply with a click. Just say, okay, they're validated, click. And then what's really nice is in the case of companies, it doesn't work like this for the British Society of Gastroenterology because they're not one company, you know, it's a diverse mix. But for companies, they can even reimburse employees the moment that expense claim is validated. You know, money can be sent by wire transfer immediately.
Wow, that's major for people that travel a lot to be able to get that immediate reimbursement.
Exactly. I mean, in cases like this, it's seriously a question of weeks of effort that no longer has to be done manually. It's just done more or less automatically. And as Andrew said, he's talking about, he left a comment saying that he's looking at a situation where you've got multiple software and trying to integrate all of them. We completely agree, and that's in this case it's it's Spindesk, as I said, and it's integrated with Xero. So even that part, which would previously be someone going through an Excel sheet and matching up their P&L for the year and making sure that every expense is accounted for, even that's automated, so you don't even have to reconcile all those payments at the end. It all just happens. So it's a serious, in this case, if we go back to those 4 principles, it's serious save time, which is,
absolutely.
I think that's going to be a theme. Obviously, as I said, there's lots of benefits, but save time is
save time is major with automation. And you know what else? All this talk about traveling just made me think again how it's been so long since we've traveled, and it just makes me really hope that someday soon we'll have travel back and just be able to, travel comfortably without being nervous about wearing masks or being exposed to anything. So hopefully someday soon.
Yeah, I think it's starting, but you're right. It's certainly a slow drip, the return. Let's go on to the next one. And
yeah,
this is on, you again, Rachel.
So this is another collection story. This is Jessica's story, our dear friend Jessica. She's a Visita super user, and she's also a partner of ours. So she, we actually, besides the fact that she uses our platform, we also work with her on different projects. She's an entrepreneur. She's a mom. She's a social media guru. I don't know how many of you guys are on Instagram, but if you are on Instagram, you should look for Jessica because she has the best account, or one of the best accounts on Instagram. She is a marketing coach, so she gives you marketing tips, and she just has the most hilarious content. So it's like marketing tips, funny videos, sometimes combined. If you're on Instagram, you should find Jessica and follow her. So besides having this really cool Instagram account, Jessica, she's actually a lawyer turned marketer. So she has a marketing agency. She's a marketing consultant. I know we have a couple of marketers here in the audience as well. So perhaps this is a story you could relate to. So she kind of left her career as a lawyer to become an independent consultant. And she started up her business. And, immediately she needed to scale. And all these time-consuming tasks, just taking up too much time, munching away on the hours that she had to serve clients. And there's just, too much going on, too many moving pieces. And what she talks about very often is how she just had this kind of never-ending streams of tasks when it came to finances. So she had people waiting to get a quote for different services. Then there were people that she was waiting for her clients to get back to her on the quote. Maybe they want to change something. Maybe they're ready to move forward. Maybe they're ready to sign. She had a bunch of people that agreed on the quote, but then she needed to generate the invoice so they could start working together. And then she had clients where the invoice was already generated and maybe some of the service was already delivered, but she was still waiting on payment. So there's just like all this fragmentation in her workflow. There's all these different moving pieces. She really wanted to see everything come together. And this is something that she talks about a lot also as a business coach, just in general with finance and with everything else, trying to kind of move away from this scenario where you have a lot of these random tasks, kind of like I'm imagining those envelopes again, flying through the air in all different directions. And create one streamlined process where each action kind of leads into each other, into the next action. And this is pretty much what automation does, right? It kind of creates this sort of conveyor belt where tasks are able to move from one station to the next without you running around, frantically resending things or answering the phones or writing emails or doing data entry manually. So when Jessica came to Visita, she set up her own billing flow, and she manages her entire payment cycle end to end with Visita. And I've actually seen this in action because she does work. She works with us. I mean, she's invoiced Visita. She's sent us quotes. So this is actually funny. She sent a quote using Visita to a person working at Visita, and then I approved that quote, got the invoice, paid the invoice, everything on Visita. So there was a lot of Visita going on. But essentially, if I had to kind of just describe her workflow, it's she generates a quote, her client is able to approve that quote online with one click or reply and ask for any kind of modifications. If the quote is approved, automatically an invoice will be generated and sent to the client. And that invoice has a link on it where the client can pay. And then after paying, the client will immediately get a receipt, and Jessica's dashboard on Visita will be updated that the payment was made. So we're going all the way from quote generation to final payment, getting the receipt, knowing that you have this money going into your bank account, all in one continuous flow instead of having that fragmentation. So this really transforms, the way you work, because instead of, again, just creating more and more of these email chains and to-do notes and sticky notes all over your desk, remember to call this person or that person, it's all just one continuous flow that runs in the background. And Jessica is an advocate of processes. This is what she does. She talks a lot about having a process, not looking at your tasks as just like a bunch of different things that you have to do, but one thing that leads into another. So you have the kind of peace of mind to set that in the background and work on, the more strategic projects and what you do best and what brings you joy. So this is Jessica's story. And this is it's a story I always love telling, especially because I thought it was really cool how she was billing Visita, using Visita, paying her using Visita. Bit of a tongue twister, but it was a cool story, and I think another element that is important here is the monitoring. So she has a dashboard where she can see the different steps in the cycle. How many people are waiting for estimates, how many payments are due, how many payments are overdue, how many payments aren't due yet. So she also has a really strong understanding of her bottom line, where she stands, and she can kind of know where she is at the moment and then also plan ahead.
Valon made an interesting comment just towards the end of the story there. Somewhat related, I think, to Andrew's comment above that, which is Valon says, sometimes two different softwares help you on their own way, but a small part of their features overlap. And I agree, we find ourselves having to do data entry multiple times so that they both are up to date. And I think that's there's a great kind of tipping point, I think, when you're kind of building a business where you start with nothing, obviously, because you've just created the business. You add a piece, you add a piece, you add a piece, you add a piece, and all of them are adding something. All of them are helping. Maybe all of them are saving time. And then there becomes a tipping point where suddenly you have so much going on that they start detracting from one another. The benefit of saving time with automation over here is actually completely undone because you then have to do it manually over here. And that's when I think a lot of companies really benefit from finding tools that tackle whole streams of the process, just like what you were talking about, Rachel, where you're getting all the way from the quote to the payment in one stream. And in our case with Spindesk, we're sort of talking more about payables. So you go all the way from a purchase order to paying that supplier in one stream, which means that you're not then having to do separate pieces of data entry along the way and juggle different pieces of software.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
It's a great point. It's a great point, Valon. Okay, the next one, I really like this example. This is Omar from On-the-Go Accountants. And I like this because Omar's job is to really help companies set up great accounting and finance systems, really get everything going well for clients. But I think like many experts and practitioners, he doesn't always follow his own advice, and specifically, specifically talking about receipts. So, we spoke about expenses before. Omar's lucky enough, he's got a company card, or I'll explain, that we're talking about in the past, but he had a company card, but he was just notorious for never delivering receipts on time, which I think if you are the person responsible in the finance team for collecting everyone's receipts, that will really speak to you. Because I think that pretty much applies to everyone. Even as Omar says in his own words, I'm really bad at sending receipts to my finance director, despite obviously he knows the system, he knows how it works, he knows how important it is for the business. He just doesn't do it because it's not a routine that he has. And so this kind of highlights, I think, how important it can be and how useful it can be to just create simple little nudges, and in Omar's case, rules that prevent him from doing this or from not doing this. They kind of force him to submit his receipts on time. In this case, again, we're talking about Spindesk. This is a rule that we have in the platform that basically says if you have a receipt that's older than, and you set these rules, but I'll talk about what they are internally here. If I don't submit a receipt within 1 week, it's considered a late receipt. And then if I have more than 2 late receipts, I can't pay for anything. So it's a pretty it's a pretty straight up black and white system. If you don't follow the rules, you're no longer allowed to pay. And I'll be really transparent with everybody. When we created that rule, everybody was really worried about, does this sound like does it feel like we're blaming people? Does it feel a bit harsh, a bit mean? But actually what ends up happening is it makes the software or the system or the automation the monitor and not the finance team, which is really important, because I think one of the things that so many finance teams hate is sometimes you have to be the bad cop. I'm sure there are some finance professionals out there that enjoy that, but I think most of them would tell you that that's actually one of the hardest things, going around and having those conversations and saying, look, actually, you never follow the rules, so we're going to take away your company card or something like that. Instead, it's now a system that does it. You don't even have to have that conversation. That individual can't blame the finance team. Those are the rules. They knew the rules, and the system will prevent them from spending if they can't follow them. So, in Omar's case, he does follow them now. Because, as he says, unless you stop my card, I would not upload the receipts. So now with that sort of sword hanging over his head, or that potential result, he now follows the rules. We just have, sorry, Rachel, did you have anything you wanted to say? Otherwise, there are a couple of comments we could try to have a look at.
Oh, yeah. I just have to say that I can really identify with the need to create some sort of degree of separation between the person and the act of, kind of collecting receipts or giving refunds or collecting payments. If you're a business owner, this is something I hear from business owners we work with all the time. And this is very true. If you have a personal connection with the clients you serve, money talk it can be awkward. I've heard from a lot of therapists or even business consultants who will meet with the client and talk about personal growth and kind of build up this whole inspiring meeting where they're going out and they're feeling really good about the future and what they're about to do. And then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, and you also owe me, $300. So it's just it's not a very comfortable way to finish an interaction. Not that I'm saying anyone should ever be embarrassed or uncomfortable about, asking for the money they rightfully deserve.
Earned, yeah.
Exactly, earned and obviously deserve to get paid. But still sometimes, as a person that, really cares about relationships, sometimes you could potentially say to yourself, oh, you know what, maybe I'll send it later, or maybe I'll wait a couple of days, just kind of not wanting to ruin that moment that you might have at the end of, delivering a service to a client. So I think what automation really does is it creates exactly that degree of separation. It's not me asking you for money. It's an email with my business's logo that is sent to you saying, thank you so much for choosing us. Please see your invoice attached, or a text message with the link for paying online. It's the system, it's the business. It takes, that whole awkward situation out of the good, healthy business client relationship. And I've seen many businesses, talk about this from many different industries. You don't have to be a doctor or a business coach. You could be anyone that kind of builds on these relationships with clients. So yeah, that's just something that kind of came to mind when you're talking about not making it personal, making it more about the automation. And now, yeah, let's take some time to look at these comments.
Yeah, well, Justin has an interesting one, which the question is, what tech is used to expose and replicate the data into different systems? Is this an RPA type technology? I think possibly if what you're referring to is our conversation about the goal of removing the need for extra data entry and extra steps along the way. Actually, I think what we're talking more about, or at least in the case of Spindesk, we're advocating you're better to find all-in-one tools that actually incorporate all the things that you need. So rather than having an invoice, a supplier invoicing system, or a procurement system, a way that you pay suppliers, plus an expense system, plus a corporate credit card, we would argue that you're much better off actually having these all in the same system so that the data is in the same place. And also for other users, just to go back to that idea of UX at the beginning, or intuitiveness, if they're all in the same place, that means that the users only have one system they need to learn to use. So in our case, if it's an employee in a company, I don't need to know how to do invoices this way and expenses this way, and I have a company card that has these rules. In fact, they're all actually the same system, just with different kind of, in our case, payment methods or different entry points into the system that all look and feel and operate the same way. Rachel, do you have anything to add?
So no, I second that. I mean, I think just choosing inclusive solutions that don't require manual data entry or don't require any, connection points between two different platforms, that would probably, to me, be something that I would look into if I was shopping around for technical solutions, or choose solutions that have native integrations with other platforms. So I love, I love it when an app has an app market in it where you can just plug in all the different, other applications you use. So even if something is happening on a different platform, there still is connectivity. You have workflows coming in and out. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents, I guess.
Yeah, the one that we do still find ourselves using all the time that's really great is called Zapier, Justin. It basically is just a connector. So yeah, exactly. Valon has just suggested Zapier. It will, if I create something in Google Sheets, it can replicate that directly into another system, for example. Often that's the way it will work. You'll create a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet in between, and then it will send it from here to the Excel sheet to another system. But I would recommend, if possible, finding something that does everything you need in one. We better keep moving. So Rachel, you're up again.
Yeah, so this is another great story from the kind of Visita community. So this is Angela. She does coaching and therapy, and she also loves sailing. So I actually chose a picture of her sailing because I know that that's something that she is very passionate about and has more time to do thanks to automation. So this has actually given her not just the peace of mind, but the ability to, pursue her love for sailing and just do what brings her joy, which is, really great. So this is, I guess, a picture of Angela in her element. Angela has a really interesting story because it also kind of is, it's a good representation of what happened to a lot of businesses over the last 2 years with COVID and so many of the interpersonal interactions being moved online. So Angela serves a lot of her clients online. She provides therapy online. So she can work with clients, essentially from anywhere in the world. She could be talking to someone anywhere and then the session is over. And it's not that, the person isn't going to just pull out their wallet and hand her a check or give them the card because they could be, on a different continent. So she still needs the ability to bill for her time, even if it's not happening in the same, if the session isn't happening in a room, it's happening virtually. And she kind of just needed to figure out how she was going to bill for that time and also create a cadence. Because what happens is, when you run a business like Angela's, you really rely on retention, on creating some sort of constant flow of customers that don't just come in, for the one time, that feel committed to an ongoing process. So Angela both wanted to find a way to kind of bill for remote work. And I'm interested if there's anyone here that bills for remote meetings or kind of does things more online than they used to. I'd love to maybe drop us a note in the comments. I'd love to hear about, what you've been doing. So Angela needed a way to bill online for remote services. And she also wanted to maintain some sort of degree of like continuity from session to session, not have this fragmentation or not have these one-timers that aren't really committed to, going through the real process with her. So that's where she kind of found Visita. And Visita is very much optimized for retention. So, we kind of built a solution that helps businesses create some sort of rhythm of work with their customers. And this is kind of related to Jessica's story as well, where it's about creating these workflows. It's not about having these isolated interactions. It's about seeing the big picture. Part of Visita's core is actually a CRM where you can see, who is this person? When was the last time they bought something? How much have they paid me over the years? When did I speak to them last? Is there, if you took a note sometime of something that they did, all their information is going to be there. So for Angela, it was really very much about kind of establishing some sort of cadence, some sort of rhythm of work with their customers. So she used a feature we call packages in Visita. What packages does basically is it allows you as the business owner to create these bundles of services. So you can take a collection of services and bundle them up, sell them as one unit. Or you could take, if you just have one service, you could take that and create a package with just like, instead of, one session, you could sell 10 sessions or 12 sessions, or you can give a discount. You can say, buy 12 sessions, get 2 for free. So you create these service packages and they're displayed on your client portal. So your clients can go, check them out. It's kind of like an e-commerce experience where their clients are looking at these different packages, reading about the different services. If there's a discount, they can read about the discount, and then they can purchase the package, pay for it upfront, and then the credits are applied to their account. So what happens is this is how Angela sells most of her services nowadays as service packages. So instead of getting these one-timers, she's getting people that are committed to work with her for the long term. And instead of having, this kind of fragmented flow where she's calling them to schedule and reschedule and, time can go by between appointments, she has these service packages where her clients can book their next session online. And instead of paying for each individual session, Visita will just apply the credits for that particular session. So it kind of has two sides to it. It's the client that doesn't have to worry about, oh no, now did I pay last time? Do I have to pay again? When's my next appointment? When am I going to pay for that? That's all taken care of with these package credits. And for Angela, she doesn't have to worry about, kind of chasing customers to go ahead and book another session, because by purchasing a package, her clients are by default becoming committed to working with her long term. So there still is a certain degree of manual work here, but it kind of takes away the chase. It kind of automates, this is automation that kind of just creates order in the sense of having customers move away from this one-off module and create more of a repeat business module for businesses like Angela that really try to create this. So this is Angela's story. I'd love to, I'm going to ask that question again about kind of just virtual services, and if any of you guys have, introduced any kind of virtual or online services over the last couple of months. And this is also a great time to remind you guys that we're here. If you have any additional questions, you can just drop them. Let's take a look and see if we have anything new in the comments.
Andrew, would you mind just asking Rachel, could you take a look at Andrew's question? I'm having a bit of trouble deciphering it. Maybe, Andrew, would you mind just asking it again from maybe a different, try to take another angle on that one. It's that first sentence I don't quite understand.
Yeah.
While you do that, we will come to your question, Andrew, I promise. I'm going to move on to the next example because we want to make sure everybody gets out of here on time. For sure, and by everyone I mean obviously you wonderful audience members. So this is our last example. This is November 5, which is a very, very modern, trendy, digital agency. Because they're digital and modern and trendy, they have countless online subscriptions. So we're really talking about a lot of software, which obviously, in the same way that we described earlier, you sign up for each piece of software because each piece of software helps you do something that you need right now. It's going to help you save time. It's going to help you make more money, whatever it is. What you kind of don't think about is the fact that with every one of those, there's another whole kind of workflow that has to go on behind the scenes. Specifically tracking all of those payments, making sure that you cancel the ones you're not using anymore. Obviously, that's a big part of it. But even the ones that you love and that you are paying in full for every single time, there's still getting that invoice, making sure that you're saving the important information, making sure that you're just tracking how much you're spending on it. So as Ralph says, in some cases, no one even knew anymore who the owner of a subscription was or what it was used for, which I think if you're in any kind of modern business, we're just going through this exercise ourselves internally, and it's a lot easier because of the tools we have, but there are still lots of things on there saying, wait a minute, why are we paying for this? Who's using this thing? Didn't that person leave? Why do they still have a subscription? So if you have no real way of tracking that, that just kind of becomes impossible. What they do is, so the old way that you would do that is you'd have your 2, 3, 4 company credit cards, and all of these payments would go on those company credit cards. And at the time, you'd know who it was for, so I would go to my boss and say, hey, I need this new tool, and she would pay with her card, and we would all be on top of that. 6 months later, nobody has any recollection of what happened there. Nobody knows that I'm actually the one using the tool, not my boss. What happens if one of us leaves the business, etc. So instead, they use virtual credit cards. And that means, the beauty of a virtual credit card is that with every payment, you create a new card. So you don't have 10, 20 software subscriptions running on one company card and then, checking the balance or the credit statement every month and trying to figure out where all those payments are going. Instead, you have one card for one payment. So whenever you want to cancel the payment, you cancel the card. Whenever you cancel the card, but you want to continue the payment, you just replace it with a new card. The beauty of that is that each of those cards is also in the name of the person making the payment. So instead of me asking my boss to use her credit card to take the subscription, I use my card, I make a request through the platform, and then she can approve it. And both of those steps are tracked. So everyone can see that it was me, Patrick, who requested the software. It was my boss, Stephanie, who approved it. And then each month, it's on me to upload a receipt when each payment comes through, which is really important because if you do it the other way around and it's actually on the finance team to track down every receipt, except they don't know who made each payment, that whole receipt tracking down process just becomes completely untenable as soon as you get over 40, 50, 60 subscriptions. And trust me, it's not very hard to get over 40, 50, 60 subscriptions. We're talking hundreds here. So as he says, now we're the heroes. Basically, he's putting the other employees in the company in charge of their own payments, empowering them to make decisions. Obviously, there's still an approval step, so nobody's making a payment that they shouldn't be making. But they're in control of it. And each month, each individual is the one to submit the receipt. Otherwise, if we go back to the earlier example, their card's going to be cut off if they don't do it. So it's all linked up. And I don't know, are there people in the room at the moment who have had experience with virtual cards and used them? Because this was something that was quite new for me 3 years ago when I joined Spindesk. I'd never heard of them. It's kind of a revelation. And they do have them in our personal lives as well. If you're lucky enough to be with certain banks or certain modern banks, you can create them, and then if you have a Netflix subscription, but you also have an Apple TV subscription, and you want to keep track of them, you can create separate cards for each of them. It's pretty cool.
That is cool, and I have to say, I'm really excited about this idea in a business environment because I have been, unfortunately, on the other side where it's just such a mess, and you get these frantic emails about different tools you've never heard of, and it's is this yours, and no one wants to pull the plug on anything because these are things that could be essential for the business, and it just creates a lot of noise in the background. If there was the card, this sounds like a really good idea. I'd love to look into this. for one follow-up action item from this webinar. No, that's definitely an interesting idea. And also I did really relate to what you said about empowerment. So I think this is also, besides the fact that it really just creates order and like eliminates the millions of emails about who's using which tool, as an employee, like I feel like it creates a culture where you feel trusted and you feel like you have the freedom to select and, apply judgment and, decide which tools you want to choose to do your job in the best possible way. So even just from that perspective, like culturally creating a place where people feel comfortable to explore tools and, make decisions about, what the best tools in the industry are. I really like that.
Yeah. And the last one that I wanted to touch on, because I kind of painted a picture of disorganization, which I don't think is the case with November 5, but even with the best intentions, things go wrong. But even if you have really great tracking in place and you know who made each payment, if you're that finance team person or the office manager or whoever, just the process of having to email everybody or Slack them or go around to them each month, even that on its own, even if they are on top of things and they can give you the receipt right away, it's just a pain and it's really not necessary. That was the last example. We have about 4 minutes for Q&A, and we have a question that I think is almost certainly for you, Rachel. I'm going to read it out. It's from Gisela.
Yeah, I see we also have Andrew just rephrased his question so we can answer.
Okay. Well, actually, you know what? We should answer Andrew's question because he was first, but Gisela, we're definitely coming to you. So is there enough information for you here, Rachel?
Yeah. So it looks like, Andrew, you say you're a school and you have like the amount you charge, but some students would need help financing. So if I'm understanding this correctly, well, first of all, I guess I should start with absolutely, Visita works with many schools and many educational organizations, and we help. We have many different use cases. We really built the platform in a way where it's very customizable and you can really build your own workflow. It's the complete control is really in the hands of the user. So you could, create a certain price for tuition or for any, product or service you're selling. And then you could also create a coupon that represents a discount and then apply that coupon whenever you need to charge less to a particular client, or in this case, I guess, a student. And we also have a partial payment functionality, which I know a lot of businesses and schools use, where the service is recorded for a certain amount, but you actively charge less. And then that's obviously documented as well. So you'll always see, what the value of the service is and then how much was actually charged. So yeah, there's really a lot of flexibility when it comes to kind of building your own payment cycle. And yeah, and if you'd like to maybe, speak to someone about your use case and understand what the best practice would be within Visita, you could head over to visita.com and just kind of schedule a call with one of our product specialists. And I'm sure they'd be happy to walk you through the process.
Yeah, and just on that, straight after this, or not long after we close here, I said I'll send out the recording, and we'll also have links to Visita and to Spindesk, so it'll be really easy to reach out and get whatever it is that you're interested in. I think we're going to have exactly the right amount of time for Gisela's question, which is fabulous. I'll do my best to read it because it's a great question. Is there a solution to track accounts receivable invoice reclamations? Often customers don't pay because they have some issue with the delivery and hold the payment back until reclamation has been solved. It's difficult to track when the invoices show up in the dunning why they're not paid.
That's a really good question. And I'm sure this is, it sounds like a pretty particular scenario. I know there are solutions in place for this kind of situation. Like I've seen businesses who have managed to kind of put together a workflow where they take this into consideration. I think what I would suggest, just because we don't have much time, I would also suggest following up with our team at visita.com, kind of describing, what the business problem is, how you're hoping to get a solution. And I'm sure they'd be more than happy to walk you through, whatever possible solutions we're happy to offer.
Fantastic. With that, it's just about to hit exactly an hour, which means we've done our job exactly right. I want to thank you all very much for joining us. It was a really, really engaged, you've all been wonderfully engaged and interactive. tonight, or well, tonight where we are, which is always the best. I think webinars where people engage and share their thoughts are much better than just sitting back and listening to us. So I really want to thank you for that. It makes it much more fun for us as well, frankly. Rachel, is there anything you want to say before we go?
Thank you again, everyone. I hope you learned a couple of new things. Again, you can check us out at visita.com. And I guess the bottom line really is that, automation is here to help us. We're just moving in the direction of having more and more of our tedious, time-consuming work automated so we can focus on what we love doing and what we do best and what brings us joy and what makes us money. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. And thank you so much, Patrick. And we'll be seeing you guys next time.
For sure. And just before we go, if there are any finance teams that are preparing for end of year closing, I just wanted to say good luck. I know it's tough, but it'll be over soon, and then we can do it all again next year. So thanks very much.
For you.
Exactly. We're always rooting for you. See you later, everybody. Thanks.
Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.